Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, Greg Majeski, your personal weatherman, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your Monday, October 7th, 2024. Now, before we get rolling into this report, I do want to make a plea here to the American Red Cross to consider making a donation. Obviously, we've seen all the images and devastation caused from Hurricane Helene. And on top of that, now we got Milton. It's going to cause a lot of havoc there across portions of Central Florida. So if you please consider it, go ahead and take this QC code or the link I put down below and consider making a donation to the American Red Cross. Because we're going to be talking about this one here for today. This is kind of a special edition here for you this afternoon, for this morning, as we're looking at a very powerful storm, okay? We're going to talk about the potential impacts from this system as it gets ready to make landfall into Florida sometime on Wednesday. And we'll talk about the timing, about exactly when on Wednesday we're expecting that to happen. Now, if you're part of the new folks who come on board here, I'd like to welcome those new subscribers. And if you're that 50% out there who's not quite yet subscribed, please consider it. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you learn on future content. And if you like what you see, helps with the algorithm, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below. I do appreciate your support for this channel. All right, we're talking about some very active tropics out here. We got one, we got two, we got three hurricanes out there, plus another area of disturbed weather out here in the tropics. So very, very busy. All this out in the Atlantic, don't worry about it. All this is going to be staying out to sea. Our main focus here for today is going to be here on Milton, as we're looking at the latest advisory, the 7 o'clock Central Daylight Time advisory on this very compact storm. And this has always been the key for this storm. The tropical storm force winds only go about 80 miles from the center. For comparison, Helene was over 400, so it was a much larger storm. But this one's got a very powerful punch. The hurricane force winds only about 35 miles from the center, so it's a major hurricane. Top winds of 125 miles per hour, expected to become a Category 4. May flirt with Category 5 status here as it gets down to the coast of the Yucatan. But once it starts pulling away, we're going to see some transitioning things with this storm. It's not going to be nearly as powerful as it makes its approach and landfall, but these winds are going to greatly expand out. And I want to show you the specifics on that with some of the model data here in just a little bit. Again, we got the hurricane warnings here. Hurricane watches are up down along the coast. Big wide cone of uncertainty here as well, boy, and that makes all the difference. We're going to talk about why, especially with storm surge here in just a little while. But again, right now, it looks like the crosshair still looks like Tampa, which has not taken a direct hit from a hurricane, by the way, since 1921. It's been a very, very long time. Here's the latest infrared imagery. Boy, it's a tight, complex storm. Look how bright these cloud tops are in here. That eye only about 10 miles in diameter, 8 to 10 miles. So it's a very, very small concentric storm. And here is the Yucatan coast here. So it's going to get pretty close on this, but it is sitting over some very warm bath water. And I want to go ahead and first break that down and look into that. So let me go over here to the desk as we're going to kind of highlight some of this stuff that's kind of going on here as we're looking at some very warm water temperatures indeed. It's still sitting there around 85 degrees or so, and there's even some warmer layer out ahead of that. So we're going to watch that very, very closely here as it goes through there. So these water temperatures are still sitting pretty much in the mid 80s out in here, and that'll continue to feed the storm because that's what these tropical systems feed off, is that very warm waters of the tropics. It's even hotter out here out in the Caribbean, but Gulf has cooled down a little bit, but not significantly enough to impact this storm. So let's talk about the tracks here, looking at the global ensembles here from the overnight. And the reason why we have that big deviation there is because you've got some of the global ensembles taking it further north, like up toward Tampa, and then you have the other ones that are further south down toward Fort Myers. So again, the exact track is very critical and very key. I know they say don't just look at specifically that one eye because the hurricane is very large, but when it comes to storm surge, especially with those bays on the west coast of Florida, it does make all the difference in the world. And that's why we're going to have to watch this closely when we get toward landfall. Strength forecast, a couple of these just came in here, spiking this thing to a Category 5. As quickly as the pressure's been falling, it's down to 945 millibars. Would not shock me if we get a Cat 5 out of this, however briefly, before it starts to weaken. But again, it's going to be a major hurricane as it's skirting by the Mexican coast. I'm expecting it right now. The official forecast for it to be a Category 3 hurricane while it makes landfall on the Florida Gulf Coast. So it won't be as powerful, but it's going to be a larger storm. It's going to grow. We're going to show you that in the model data here in a second. Now, the different areas we're going to watch with this storm, okay? Again, we're going to first talk about the severe component, okay? So right there in that yellow, that area is going to see some tornadoes, okay? That's where the tornado risk is going to be the highest. probably running about 10%. This is the day 3 outlook for Wednesday. When we get the day 2, we'll get the percentages from the Storms Prediction Center for tomorrow. But again, I'd probably put that risk at about 10% of seeing some isolated weak tornadoes. Most of these typically EF0 to EF1 range. That's what Helene was pretty much. And I see a similar situation. Again, it's always the right side of that center of circulation. As you know, that track's going to be racing across Florida. And another thing with this system, by the way, because it's going to be moving at a pretty good rate of speed, you're going to see hurricane winds going straight across the coast. No doubt about that, okay? So not just going to be on the coastal thing. It'll be well inland and then out to sea on the Atlantic side because it doesn't have to travel on land for that length of time, that's for sure. All right, let's look at the excessive rainfall. Here's the other part of this. There's just like with Helene, this system's going to have a lot of rain that's already going to fall before it even gets there. All right, so flooding is definitely going to be a problem. This is the day 1 outlook here as far as the excessive rain forecast. Here's the day 2. This is going into for tomorrow, going into Tuesday. And then here is the day 3. Of course, very, very high, obviously, with our tropical system coming in there. So we're going to have a lot of heavy rains already falling in advance of this storm. So that's just going to enhance that flooding risk across portions of Florida, which, of course, as you know, is very low-lying and waterlogged and everything else. It's going to be some flooding problems there, to say the least. The other part of this, again, finally, is the storm surge. That track is going to be critical here. As I'm looking here at your forecast here. So what I want to show you here on this is, again, the track as well as where we're expecting this thing to potentially cause problems, all right? So again, if it stays on the current track, and you see the track right here, that's just the track right through there. All right, it'll be areas south of Tampa. So we're talking about getting into this big bay here just north of Fort Myers. That's going to be a concern. But if this track is further north, if it's up here, then it's Tampa Bay and into that St. Petersburg area. That becomes a big problem, because if the eye stays to the south, the winds will be blowing it outward like this. There will be some flooding on that peninsula there of Florida a little bit near the Clearwater area. That'll be concerned. But a lot of that water will be blown out of the bay. But if it stays a little bit further to the north, then we got some serious problems, folks, with storm surge. And what we're looking here as far as storm surge is anywhere up to 10 feet plus. You see that red in there? Anything from Siesta Key, actually getting near South Bradenton, all the way down towards, say, Boca Grande, you're still looking at storm surge up there close to 10 feet for a lot of areas, maybe getting as high as 12 feet in some zones there. But again, if that track is further north, if this thing begins to shift further to the north, then we're going to be talking about these areas up here being ground zero for the storm surge. So again, Tampa is not out of the woods here, folks. Tampa, St. Petersburg, that whole area there, we'll have to watch very closely because that track will be critical. And again, Tampa hasn't seen a direct hit in over 100 years. So quite significant, to say the least. All right, let's go ahead and talk about the model data. Let's go ahead and get into that, and we're going to shift gears here a little bit, and we get that up and ready for you. We're going to first take a look at the European model. The European model did a pretty good job as far as the direction of Helene. We'll compare it, see what it does with this one as well. Now, we'll say this one's not initializing nearly as far as the strength. So I'm going to ignore the European as far as strength's concerned, because right now, as the initialization was showing it at 995 millibars, and it's way below that. But the track looks like it's pretty reasonable. It does take it down to the coast, down to right there, going into early tomorrow morning. And then it starts to bear up toward the north. And then it looks like it's showing a potential landfall here. Looks like sometime between 5 and 8 o'clock. So, but pretty much right on the track that the National Hurricane Center is showing there. And it's going to cross the Florida Peninsula, move on out to sea. Look at all this yellow blowing behind us. We got high pressure. It's going to control this. And the other thing I want to point out here is, again, look at this other area of low pressure here. You already got this weakness that's going across Florida. That's what's going to be responsible for the heavy rains that's already going to flow in that area to begin with. So we're going to have that rains well in advance of this hurricane as it goes by. Now, the other thing I do want to show is, I mentioned before, we're going to see a bit of transition with the storm as it begins to move. So we're going to look at one of the hurricane models here. I'm going to illustrate this. This is the wind field here. This is the wind gusts. And you just see how compact this storm is. So let me go ahead and bring this forward here. It is a very, very tight storm. As we said, the tropical storm force winds only go 80 miles from the center. But watch what happens once it goes back past the Yucatan Peninsula here. It really starts to see some significant changes. It starts to grow. Notice that winds start to expand out, all right? And as it gets to making landfall, it's really going to go. So by the time we get to right about here, so this is about 11 o'clock on Wednesday. This model is a little bit slower than the European model, but this one's very dangerous because it's actually north of the bay. This would inundate Tampa. If this model was true on this one, Tampa showing winds here, gusts up to 102 miles per hour, and all that water would get blown right into that bay, and that would cause significant flooding for Tampa and St. Petersburg, if this one holds true. European is a little bit further south, but we're talking tens of miles here, folks. Any deviation, any wobble can make a significant change there. So it'll be definitely going to be like a nowcast type event when we get into Wednesday, and yours truly, of course, will be doing a lot of live coverage on this. So let's, again, watch that wind field here. As it's approaching the coast, we're going to see some things happen. It transitions very rapidly. Goes from a tropical system, and it gets absorbed into the jet. You look at these winds here up along the Georgia coast here. Hurricane force winds all the way up here on the north side of the hurricane, which is really weird. You know, we always tell you right side, right side, right side. Well, what happens here? Everything's on the left side. What happens? The storm starts to make a transition as it's getting absorbed into the jet stream. Okay, so it becomes basically extratropical very, very, very rapidly. And then it just opens up. It does not have that appearance of, say, like right here, when you're looking at it as a hurricane. By the time it gets across the coast, this doesn't look like a normal hurricane anymore. It starts to transition into a extratropical low pressure system very rapidly. I can show you why we're expecting that. Let me go to the European model here. We're looking at the jet stream. Okay, that's that river of air that kind of drives everything along here. So let me take this forward here just a little bit as we highlight a couple things. All right, so here is a weaker subtropical jet going this way. All right, here's our hurricane down here. We've got a deepening trough that's like this. So watch what happens here as I go forward in through Wednesday and going into Thursday. Watch that low. It just gets absorbed in, gets kicked in, and gets absorbed in. Look at that jet stream really look at this energy really spiking here. All right, that energy is going to really shoot up in here very, very quickly. And the jet stream is going to absorb the energy from this hurricane very rapidly and take it on out to sea. All right, so again, we're going to catch this thing go from a tropical system to an extratropical low very fast as it's crossing the Florida peninsula and making its way out into the open Atlantic. Then once this goes by, it looks like we're pretty quiet here across the continental United States for a little while. We'll take this out to the end and run. We do have another, still tracking this pretty decent cold shot here coming down here as we go into next week, going into the 14th and 15th across the eastern half of the United States. Still fairly mild and warm out here in the west with that ridge out there. And as we take this on out to the end, you see that kind of move on off. And then another dip here out in the west, start seeing another trough here coming out here in the west as we head toward the middle of next week. One thing I will say with this jet stream pattern, this thing continues into November. We definitely need to watch out for that severe weather potential because it depends on where those troughs kind of set up, but the very progressive looking pattern right now. So let's see if that will continue, is that may open the door for severe weather down the road. Not right now, looking quiet on that for the moment. All right, let's go ahead and take a look right now at the European model again as we take a look at this thing tracks. Again, we got that little disturbance out ahead of this thing. That's going to jump all this rain down across Florida before our hurricane down here actually arrives on scene. So very similar to Helene with that cold front we had that dropped all that rain before the storm ever arrived. So we're going to get double whammy with the rain in here. Here is our big trough, our big bowling ball here, big low pressure system here, a little upper level low here that's swinging down to the south. That's what's going to help pick up Helene and charge it up that way. It should stay off the coast the way it's looking right now. So the folks in the Northeast not having to worry about this. Once it crosses the peninsula, it's going to race on out to sea, and it is gone. And then once it goes by, look at the rest of this. Look at this country for the rest of the weekend. Got a little energy here coming down with another little cool shot here coming across the Great Lakes and coming into the Northeast right there. So we got some rain here going into Sunday and Monday of next week, going to the 13th and 14th. But other than that, most of the nation looking pretty quiet. Not that unusual to see in October. October traditionally is a quiet month. We're making that transition from summertime weather over to the fall weather. And again, with the pattern I'm seeing, I'm a little worried about November being active for that potential secondary severe weather season. So we'll see how that works out for us there. Let's talk about rainfall again. We got all this rain that's going to fall before the storm ever gets there, especially across South Florida. Several inches of rain there. Although we'll say it's not quite as robust as what it was showing yesterday. But once this thing does pass, we're talking significant rain. I see one total here near Tampa kicking out 14.5 inches of rain there, 14.82 inches there near Tampa. So Some interior flooding not out of the question, but the fact that it's going to be rain-logged ground, it's already going to be saturated before the storms get there. But at least most of the southeast, obviously these areas up here that's continuing to clean up from Helene up there in North Carolina, their weather will stay dry. That frontal system that's going to be stalled is going to basically act as a barrier and kind of protect what's going on there. But South Florida, again, is going to be inundated here with the heavy rainfall as this thing moves on in. And of course, once this is all done and get by, we got a couple of nice little cool shots here across the eastern portion of the United States I do want to highlight here. We got this initial cool down here, which is not that bad. It's just a little bit here across the mid-Atlantic and the south. You see the blue, obviously showing temperatures here running below average here going into Tuesday. And again, it's that stalled front down here that's protecting the southeast from getting this storm to go further north. So we got some good news. Still very warm out here in the west, obviously, with above normal temperatures continuing out there. We'll take this through the run again as we'll see the eastern third on the wake of that hurricane going on out. Look at that. I mean, we're talking about heading toward Thursday and Friday, most here across the eastern third seeing below normal temperatures. High plains looking above normal temperatures for Minnesota back toward the Dakotas, and most of the Intermountain West also looking at above normal temperatures as well. And as we go ahead and take this on out, that clears on out. Then we got that next shot that's coming down. We've been highlighting that one as well. Look at this one. Boom. This one comes in heading into Tuesday the following week. So we got back-to-back Tuesdays with some very cool weather. But where it's cooler here, we got very, very, very warm weather here across the west. Temperatures running some 15-plus degrees above normal there across areas of Montana, into the Dakotas, and into Wyoming as well going into next week. With that cool down coming down the east. So that looks like that'll linger right into Wednesday of next week. But it does look like we did get a little bit of cool air finally intruding here across the Pacific Northwest, and that'll kind of beat down those above normal temperatures there in the west that's been kind of lingering there for the last couple of weeks. So it's been very, very warm indeed to see that. So we can sum this up. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick at the climate outlook here. We'll see how that all kind of lines everything up here once that hurricane gets on by. So we're looking at above normal temperatures for 2/3 of the country, near normal here in the east. I would say even maybe a little below average here from 12th to 16th. We'll see if they update this a little bit, especially with that next shot expected to come down next Tuesday. I think this will probably update a little bit. We'll see how that looks later today. These are updated typically 3:30 in the afternoon every day. So we've got above normal temperatures here for most of the country from the 14th to the 20th, except for areas there in the New England. Precipitation, again, most of the country, as we just showed you there, dry as a bone here, below normal precipitation over the next couple of weeks, except for obviously Florida, areas of the Pacific Northwest. And that continues the 14th to the 20th. So very dry here in the middle of the country, except for a couple of zones there across Florida and the Northwest. This, of course, goes from the 14th through the 20th. So that, my friends, is your update on your weather, as well as what we're expecting there with our major hurricane, our second hurricane in 2 weeks. That's going to hit Florida. One to hit the Panhandle. This one's going to hit the peninsula. Question is, where exactly along the coast is it going to hit? Do I expect it to be a Category 5 at landfall? No, I do not. Again, the storm will be making that transition, as you were seeing there, with the jet stream absorbing the energy from the hurricane. It's going to weaken. The question is, how much is it going to weaken? Right now, still expecting it as a Category 3. So here is my timeline for it. Tomorrow, again, for the 8, 11, and 2 o'clock, I will be doing those live updates for you. We'll keep it around 15 or 20 minutes for those updates throughout the day. Beginning at 5 o'clock, we'll probably do a 3 or 4 hour block of extended coverage as we watch the storm, answer folks' questions, and get you ready for landfall on Wednesday, which right now looks like sometime in the afternoon on Wednesday. Again, the forward speed is going to be the big thing, and the timing may adjust a little bit. For right now, I'm looking to start coverage sometime between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday, and we're going to stay on this thing right up until landfall. We're going to do like we did with Helene. Hopefully it won't turn out to be 15 hours of coverage. We'll see how it goes. But this is going to really affect the entire coast. Both coasts of Florida are going to be impacted. Both coasts of Florida are probably going to see hurricane force winds. Storm surge is going to be the big key critical thing for the west coast of Florida. And of course, the coastal areas up toward Georgia will also be impacted with this thing, as well as it exits and heads out into the Atlantic. So going to be real busy here for the Weather Nerds channel, and I like to keep you informed. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please consider it. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you got any questions about the storm I can answer, please post them down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer your question. All right, that's your update for now. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.